I recognized the citrus candle before I recognized the shoes under my bed. Dallas heat outside, Arctic AC inside, and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I just stared at the half-empty glass of tap water on the nightstand, fingerprints fogged around it like a halo, and realized I wasn't thirsty anymore. That's us in one picture, I thought. Unfinished, smudged, a little ridiculous. 15 years, 2 kids with braces and science fair medals, a mortgage that sighs every first of the month. Amy said she'd lost the spark, which sounded like a scented candle review, not a marriage. I told her to take a bag and go. She did. The kids begged me to bring Mom back. I told them I didn't change the locks, I changed the rules. That landed with all the warmth of an open freezer, cold but clear. Sometimes clarity is a better blanket. People assume fury feels like fire. Mine felt like ice water. My name's Paul, if you care about labels, and I manage IT operations for a hospital system that congratulates itself for having empathy software. I can calibrate a budget to the penny and a tone to the decibel. I wasn't going to torch my life. I was going to audit it. How much does Betrayal cost per square foot in North Dallas? Depends. Do you count the throw pillows? I swept the room, because that's what I do when a system fails. I checked the logs. A cufflink under the bed, matte silver, initials cut small and smug, R.M. My first thought was inventory. My second thought was, he doesn't bend to tie his shoes. The sheets smelled like the laundry detergent I buy in bulk at Costco, lemon bright and earnest. The irony didn't even have the decency to be fancy. I opened the family iCloud we set up when the kids were little, back when trust meant the same thing as sleep. I stared at the shared calendar, the photos, the automatic backups that make lies trip over timestamps. I didn't hack anything. I just remembered the password. We'd chosen our daughter's first word and the year the Cowboys almost mattered. Nostalgia can be a key card. Should it be? Ask Apple. The kids texted me heart emojis from their rooms like lifeboat flares. I texted Amy's sister to say Amy was safe. I left a voicemail from my lawyer friend Preston, who knows Texas community property the way barbecue joints know smoke. I didn't feel heroic calling a lawyer. I felt prudent. In Dallas, prudence is just revenge that went to business school. When I washed my hands, a hairline crack ran through the glass over our wedding photo on the dresser, from some earlier bump nobody confessed. Us smiling, the glass not so much. The metaphor pulled a chair and asked to stay. I let it. I don't fight metaphors. They're free consultants. That night, the house hummed, the fridge ticked, the dog sighed. Every sound a vote that life continues. Then my phone lit up, a Venmo notification tied to our joint household account. Amy paying Mercer Roasters with a coffee cup emoji and a heart. R.M. Mercer. Cute? Was I reading tea leaves or a billboard? Either way, caffeine was involved. I palmed the cufflink like a coin I didn't want to spend and Googled Mercer Dallas cufflinks. Too broad. LinkedIn tightened the net. Ryan Mercer, VP at Carter Mercer Development. Photos full of clean jawlines and charity boards. A man allergic to bad lighting. A man who donates to the same education nonprofit where Amy volunteers. Of course. Networking, but make it personal. Was this a glitch in our marriage or a feature? And if I fix the bug, do I break the app? I slid the cufflink into my pocket and booked a Zoom with Preston for the morning. Sleep felt like a meeting I couldn't reschedule. I lay there anyway, staring at that cracked glass, listening to the AC whisper like it knew a secret. I had a name, initials carved into metal, and probably into calendars too. Question was, do I want to win, or do I want to be right? In Dallas, that's not a trick question. It's a trap. Preston's watch could have covered a month of the mortgage, which made me trust him more. He opened with the greatest hits. Texas is community property. Adultery matters in division if you want a judge to frown. Kids matter more than feelings.
Stay civil if you like your money. He asked if I wanted blood or a balance sheet. I said harmony with a paper trail. He smiled the way only a lawyer in Dallas smiles, like a man who has seen oil and water negotiate. He warned me not to move funds, not to ghost her, not to become a walking Reddit thread. He said an amicable settlement saves your kids' sleep. He also said amicable is Latin for expensive and slow. I asked what forgive translates to. He said prenup. We didn't have one. We had a house with a squeaky hinge and a backyard magnolia that drops leaves like bad secrets. Symbolic tree meets symbolic man. I kept it business. I asked about custody. He said judges like parents who don't weaponize birthdays. I asked about the affair. He asked if I could prove it without turning into a Netflix cautionary tale. I left out the cufflink for now. A piece of metal is more valuable when you choose where to place it. Call it social chess or petty carpentry. After the call, I scrolled Ryan Mercer's corporate site. Carter Mercer is everywhere you look, if you look too closely. Glossy mixed-use, rooftop pools, a splash of community impact. LinkedIn blessed me with a connection of a connection. Ryan sits on the board of BrightPath, the education nonprofit where Amy has been finding herself on Tuesdays and many Thursdays. Photos. Amy at a gala, sequins catching light like she was trying to catch something else too. Guess who's standing 2 chairs over, holding a silent auction paddle? Initials on his sleeves if you zoom in. I didn't have to. The cufflink in my pocket warmed like a blush. The house smelled like burnt coffee because I forgot to change the filter. That's marriage in a scent. Good intention gone sour. The kitchen island had a permanent coffee ring, topographical as a map of our compromises. I ran my finger around it, as if I could redraw the coastline. The dog watched me patiently. Dogs vote for continuity. I envy their politics. Kids came downstairs, all hoodie and earbuds, hovering like satellites unsure of their orbit. They asked if Mom was coming back. I said I was talking to people to make sure everyone's okay. They nodded like I'd said maybe, which I had in adult. The smaller one asked if I was mad. I told them I was disappointed. Dad code for yes. They asked if we could be normal by Friday because there's a game. Kids in courts both love deadlines. I texted Amy, "The kids miss you. We need a plan. Guest rooms exist for a reason." I told her there would be rules. No midnight networking, no we were on a break. She replied with something about the kids' routine, then a heart. Not for me, for logistics, practical hearts, the kind you can Venmo. One more scroll. Carter Mercer's pipeline includes a development up for a city vote next week with a ribbon tied by BrightPath donors. Ryan's face anchors the press release like a guarantee. The man is a brand. Brands don't like stains. They repackage. The thought made me almost generous. Almost. If I bring Amy home under my terms, do I become the villain in her story? Or do I become the adult in the room I pay the mortgage for? I typed out the invitation for a trial return, this time with a calendar and boundaries. I told myself it was for the kids. I told myself a lot of things. Before I hit send, I took the cufflink out, laid it by the cracked photo like a museum placard, and took a picture. Evidence? No. Memory. I sent the text anyway. Cold resolve, warm coffee, burnt aftertaste. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A BrightPath email blast. Gala next month, silent auction, leadership spotlight, Ryan Mercer, patron saint of optics. I clicked RSVP and checked too, because sometimes you don't fight a parade.
You march in front of it. We negotiated a ceasefire via Google Calendar invites. Amy moved into the guest room like a tenant with a complicated lease. The kids were bright-eyed in that brittle way kids get, like glass that hasn't decided if it's decor or hazard. I played the good guy,
because good guys get custody and better Yelp reviews. Also because I am, on my good days, decent. Decent with an agenda. It happens. We started family therapy on Zoom, Dallas edition. Everyone on mute until the therapist's soft voice, bookshelf curated to say, "I have diplomas and taste," invited feelings into the chat. The therapist's rubber plant drooped comically behind her. Dying houseplant, failing marriage branding is everywhere. She asked me to speak first. I said I felt like a spreadsheet that someone typed feelings into. She called that disconnected. I called it Wednesday. Amy talked about lost passion like it was a promo code that expired. She's good with donors and metaphors. The therapist asked us to name something we appreciate. I said Amy could sell snow to Dallas in August and mean it and deliver ice with a bow. Amy blinked, half smile. Not the worst inventory. Halfway through, Amy's laptop pinged. She flinched. Notification preview, just a name, Ryan. The therapist pretended not to notice. I stared at the ceiling fan as if it were spinning answers. Was I petty enough to clock timestamps? Do you really need to ask? Later, I checked Find My for the kids' shared iPad because I'm a dad who misplaces expensive rectangles. A curious fact. Last Thursday, the iPad moved to a building near Clyde Warren Park, a sleek little condo with a lobby that looks like a skincare ad. Carter Mercer maintains corporate rentals there. How did I know? Public website, meet public curiosity. Gray area? Sure. Illegal? No. Immoral? Ask 10 people, get 11 sermons. At dinner, the kids wanted normal. So we had takeout tacos and a fight about cilantro. The dog campaigned for amnesty under the table. Amy washed dishes in my kitchen with my soap in my house while I tried to decide whether mercy is courage or laziness. The dishwater smelled lemon clean. The irony wasn't done with me yet. The Bright Path Gala loomed on the calendar like a dentist appointment with sequins. I decided to go. Not to cause a scene, Dallas doesn't do scenes, but to take notes. If you want to understand power, watch donor check-in. Names sorted by tier, smiles sized accordingly. I asked Amy if she wanted to go as co-parents, making an appearance. She heard truce. I heard strategy. Both true. Love that for us. We drove in silence to pick up our son from practice. On the radio, an ad for Carter Mercer's latest everything chimed in, complete with wind chines and epiphanies. I almost laughed. Dallas is a small town with better shoes. At bedtime, the kids hug me like I'm a lighthouse. Funny thing about lighthouses, they don't chase ships. They just stand there, doing what light does, while everything else improvises. Not a bad job description, if you can afford the loneliness. Before I slept, I lined up the cufflink next to my keyboard. A little knight on a board I didn't choose. In the morning, I'd book 2 gala tickets. I'd wear the suit that says responsible, not rich. And I'd see the man whose initials kept turning up like a watermark. If he's the star, what's my role? Best supporting? Stagehand? Audience with notes? I closed my laptop as if I could close the question. The fan ticked overhead, steady like a metronome nobody asked for. When the RSVP confirmation hit my inbox, another email landed above it. Same minute, different tone. Bright Path Board announced a new ethics policy rollout next quarter. Timing is a comedian. I wondered who wrote the punchline. Then I realized, maybe I did. Gala night smelled like perfume that tried too hard, and shrimp cocktail pretending it wasn't a dare. Donor tears glittered discreetly as if generosity came with an NDA.
I watched check-in sort smiles by alphabet and endowment. Amy shone. She always does under chandeliers. I stood at her side like a well-behaved roomer. Ryan Mercer worked the room like a man auditioning for legacy. Tailored suit, jaw set to reassuring. Cufflinks, new pair, winking under the lights.
He had that Dallas thing where your greeting is a hug, but your eyes are a checklist. We shook hands. He said my name like we'd done brunch. He thanked me for supporting BrightPath, said Amy was instrumental. He didn't say at what. There was a string quartet in the corner sawing through Viva la Vida as if irony paid overtime. The air tasted like champagne and ambition. On the wall, a slideshow of smiling kids who deserved better than to be fundraiser wallpaper. I looked at those faces and thought, don't make this about me. Then I remembered, it already is to them. Parents are weather. We decide the storm. Ryan's wife found me at the silent auction. Meredith, pearls, posture, and a smile that could read your net worth without breaking eye contact. She asked if we'd met before. I said, not officially. Her eyes clocked my ring, my suit, the way Amy checked where I was in the room without moving her head. Meredith was polite Dallas, nines in a velvet drawer. Something flickered. Not ignorance, calculation. We made small talk about schools and allergies. She mentioned Ryan's calendar had been a bear lately. I dropped a pebble into the pond. Amy's committee has kept late hours too. No accusation, just weather. Her smile didn't move, but something behind it did. She looked down at the auction table like it had offended her. I made sure my compliment about Ryan's attention to detail reached the right ears. Board members, donors, people who curate reputations for sport. Not mean, just factual with frosting. I CC'd the BrightPath operations chair on a follow-up email the next morning, praising how Ryan stays late to support Amy's initiatives and asking for time log templates so I could help as a tech dad. If you want a system to inspect itself, give it a mirror and a polite request. There's a chess knight on my desk at work, old and dinged from a set my dad left me. Knights move weird. Not straight, not obvious. Useful if you like obliques. I thought about that little horse while the live auctioneer chanted numbers like a spell. I wasn't bidding. I was counting exit. Then the twist. BrightPath's executive director took the mic for announcements. New corporate governance refresh. Internal audit for time and conflict of interest compliance. The room clapped like they loved transparency as long as it arrived on schedule. Ryan's jaw tightened by a millimeter. Amy's eyes did that flick to me, then away, then back. Did I pull a string? Maybe. Or maybe I just vacuumed the carpet and found one. The quartet switched to a pop song about second chances. Cute. Donors tapped on iPads. Meredith smiled at nothing. I smelled coconut from someone's hair product and thought about beaches where people don't wear ties and lie about different things. After, my phone lit up in the car. Unknown number. The text read, short and courteous. Heard you were at the gala. Let's grab coffee. -RM. My hand hovered. Coffee with the man whose initials are littered through my week? Why not? Architects love plans. So do I. I showed Amy the screen. She said we should keep things calm. Translation, don't make a mess. Calm can be a kind of mess if you use it to hide. I replied to Ryan, sure, coffee. The cufflink waited in my pocket like a vowel asking to be placed. The morning smelled like rain on hot concrete, Dallas's favorite perfume after money. I ran before sunrise, not for fitness, but because pace socks your grain into submission. Each footfall counted off questions. If I topple him, who lands where? If I let it slide, what does that teach my kids? Is mercy adult or PR? At work, a colleague pinged me on Teams.
She used to intern at Carter Mercer before switching to healthcare IT because, apparently, we heal differently. She said, off the record, Ryan was selective with ethics, that donor lists and development leads sometimes held hands. She'd heard whispers about calendared mentorships that looked like poaching. Whisper networks loved nothing more than patterns. Back home, I opened our family budgeting app, the one that auto-categorizes charges into cheerful pie charts that make groceries look like an indulgence. Amy and I both feed it, have for years. Nothing sneaky. That Venmo to Mercer Roasters landed under dining. Cute. A handful of Uber charges tagged near Clyde Warren on Thursdays. A series of small Bright Path supplies reimbursements that never got reimbursed. All perfectly explainable individually. Patterns, though. Patterns explain themselves. I drafted an email to Bright Path's outside counsel, public on their site, no guesswork needed. As a parent and donor, I asked for clarification on conflict of interest policies when board members spend extracurricular time with volunteer leads. I attached a screenshot of their own policy PDF, highlighted sections, nothing else. No accusations, just a flashlight pointed at the manual. HR loves flashlights, especially when they can hold them. I didn't send it, not yet. I watched my son eat cereal, the milk sloshing like minor chaos, and I smelled that fake strawberry odor from his vitamins. Ordinary lives carry their own music. Did I want to remix ours? Maybe. Did I want to blue the speakers? No. Then my phone buzzed, one more time, with punctuation. A LinkedIn message from Carter Mercer project manager I barely knew. He said Ryan had been pushing a rezoning package through council next week. Clean image matters, he wrote. Any noise and leadership flinches. Everything in Dallas is about image, weather, and photo ops. Zoom therapy that night was a polite war. The therapist asked about boundaries. I said we had them, they just weren't respected. Amy said I'd been emotionally distant since my dad died a decade ago, a long half-life. She said I measure love in tasks. She's not wrong. I do. Tasks complete. Feelings? Always in beta. In the middle of naming our ghosts, the doorbell dinged. The dog lost his religion. I muted Zoom and opened the door to find a hand-delivered packet from Bright Path, committee schedules, volunteer recommitment guidelines, and a chilled smile from a staffer who said she'd follow up about Amy's hours. My porch smelled like wet cardboard and lemon cleaner. Bureaucracy has a bouquet. I sent the council email, restrained, factual, a dad's handwriting in Times New Roman. Then I got another text from Ryan. Coffee tomorrow, at Oak and Cane, 9 a.m. Neutral ground. Mutual? Doubtful. I told Amy. She said, be careful, like we were planning a hike, not a slow-motion referendum. On the stove, the kettle clicked off. Steam ghosted the kitchen window. Condensation painted a fog up the glass, as if the house were breathing shallow. The chestnut on my desk faced nothing in particular. I put the cufflink next to it. Two little symbols of two kinds of power. If he shows up swagger strong, do I go softer? Or do I let him grade his own test? I fell asleep wondering if my life turned into one big compliance training and if I was the dull narrator. The punchline? People actually pass those. Oak and Cane smelled like regret in a cup and cinnamon trying to apologize. Ryan arrived exactly 5 minutes late, the delay of a man who thinks time waits for cologne. He looked like a promo for clean living and tactical compromise. I stayed seated, because standing gives away more than a handshake. He did the earnest smile, the one designed by media coaches paid in six-figure retainers. He thanked me for meeting. I thanked him for the cufflink, handed it across the table like lost property. His face did a half flinch I almost missed.
He tucked it away, keeping his hand in his pocket a second too long. Tell, as the poker people say. We did that ritual where two men perform a reasonableness in public. He said he didn't want complications. I said I don't either. He said Amy told me I'd been withholding, that I controlled the money, that I measured her with a schedule. Classic script, make the husband the spreadsheet, yourself the poem. I countered with calm. I'm the guy who called a lawyer to avoid a street fight. I'm the guy who invited Amy back under boundaries instead of drama. If I'm a spreadsheet, I happen to balance. He offered to make things easier. A consulting gig for my department, an introduction to his friend on the hospital board. He sketched it like generosity, not bribery. I let him talk. Some gifts come with strings, some are all string. I told him thanks, but my conflicts are already full. Then he went soft. He said he admired Amy, that she felt underseen. He used the language of empowerment like a masterclass. He framed himself as catalyst, not culprit. He asked if we could keep it adult, especially with next week's rezoning vote. Jobs at stake, he said. He named numbers I didn't want to have in my head when I slept. He wasn't wrong. People's mortgages don't care about my pride. Coffee leaves rings if you let it sit. On the table, mine circled itself like a tiny planet. That's the thing about evidence. Sometimes it's just a stain, which still says something. I told Ryan I didn't want to kill the project. I wanted guardrails. He nodded like we'd found a middle. We hadn't. We'd found a camera angle. On the way out, he slid a business card across, heavy stock, embossed, the tactile equivalent of a wink. I pocketed it with the cufflink, souvenirs from a museum I didn't buy tickets for. The kids asked that night if we were doing Christmas together. Their voices had that brave wobble. I said yes to together, no to pretending. We planned an honesty night after Thanksgiving, where adults would act like adults in sentences children can process. I wrote it on the calendar in permanent marker. The dog wagged, unaware of nuance, which is his superpower. After dinner, my email pinged with a request from Bright Path Council for a conversation. I replied with times, then my phone buzzed again. Meredith. She found my work email. Polite, crisp, could we speak sometime? Parent to parent. If Dallas Nice had a PDF, that was the subject line. I stood by the kitchen window, watching the porch light catch moths in its cone. The air smelled like cold, even in Texas. My chest knight faced the window now. Knights don't do straight lines. They ambush by geometry. Reasonable men do too when cornered. Tomorrow, counsel, then Meredith, then honesty night. Where does a man put his anger when he's promised to be calm? In a plan. Where does a plan go when people are involved? Off-road. Buckle up. Thanksgiving tasted like cinnamon and serrated smiles. We did the ritual. Parade on TV, football humming like a lullaby for people who like numbers with bodies. Grace said in that nervous cadence families use when they don't want to wake anything. Amy's sister brought a pie and a talent for seeing through walls. She hugged me too long and whispered that love is complicated. Insightful, sure, also convenient. I set honesty night after dishes. I started with me because I read somewhere that leadership looks like going first. I talked about being a fixer, about how I mistake solving for caring. I admitted I make lists at people. The kids nodded like I finally said something understandable. Homework, chores, lists. Amy's eyes watered. Mine didn't, so I made a joke about being dehydrated, which is my love language when emotions threaten to show up. Then Amy spoke, and I tried to breathe like a man in a yoga video. She said she felt invisible, that the house ran smooth, but she didn't. She said Ryan made her feel new. The kids shifted, absorbing implications with the stoicism of drifting satellites. Our son asked if new beats us. Our daughter asked if new could pay for braces. You can't teach a punchline like that. It's genetic. I didn't show the kids the cufflink. I'm not a monster. I'm a strategist with a bedtime. But I did leave a USB drive on the credenza with family photos labeled, because I've known Amy's sister since Home Depot gift cards were a love language. She doesn't go through drawers. She magnetizes information. I included a picture of the cufflink by the cracked wedding frame. No caption. I also included screenshots of BrightPath's publicly posted timekeeping expectations. Facts, not flames. Gossip cooks itself. Within hours, the group chat lit.
Not ours, theirs. Wives who brunch, moms who fundraise. Someone sent me a screen grab from Instagram, Meredith's black and white photo of a cracked mirror. Caption: "Objects reflect, people project." The comments stuck to emojis like mosquitoes to porch light. Dallas speaks fluent subtext. Bright Path Council called me that week. We talked policy, not people. Time logs, board boundaries, hour caps for volunteers led by board members. I didn't even have to say names. Systems hate names. They love rules. I left the call feeling like a school crossing guard. Visible, necessary, mildly disrespected. Ryan didn't text. Silence from that quarter felt strategic. Amy felt it. Her jokes got thinner. She asked if we could actually try. Not for optics, for us. She said she'd move back into our room, that we could do old us with new rules. The kid in me who stayed up late for a parent to come home wanted to say yes by reflex. The man in me held the line. My house is full of small noises. The dishwasher swallows, the dryer purrs, the AC clicks. That night I stood at the window with the world fogging the glass again, and I saw my reflection soften, go hazy, reappear. Two shapes, really. Who I used to be and who I'd auditioned to become. Good men can do bad strategies for good reasons. Or the inverse. Depends on who's composing the soundtrack. Amy waited by the stairs. She asked, not quite whispering, if I would give her the chance to fix the thing she broke. I said grudges are heavy. She said so is pride. We stood there like statues in a low-rent museum, lit by a lamp we bought during a sale that felt like a win at the time. I said I'd think. She nodded, like that was an answer. It was, if you speak my dialect. Upstairs, the kids laughed at a TikTok with that wheezy sound. Joy with asthma. Exhausted. Unnecessary. The next morning, an email. Ryan stepping back from the Bright Path board to focus on family, effective immediately. Short, bloodless, PR-scented. The rezoning vote still on. Timing, again with that comedian's smirk. Amy looked at her phone, then at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger, not relief. Maybe grief for a future that just got canceled. I made coffee. It tasted like something you drink when you're out of options, which of course we weren't. Yet. We signed a truce on a sticky note, 2 months of counseling, no outside mentorships, co-parenting first, separate rooms until we decide. It felt like a treaty negotiated by furniture. The kids exhaled in cautious installments. The dog slept heavier, as if peace had a smell. Zoom therapy shifted into higher gear. The therapist asked for vulnerability, which always sounds like a subscription service. To my surprise, Amy delivered. She traced back a fight from 5 years ago when my side business tanked, one of those lean, maybe we'll sell reclaimed barnwood online ideas. She said she borrowed money from her mother to float us for 3 months because my pride wouldn't let me ask anyone. She never told me. She said I seemed so sure we'd bounce that I didn't see her throwing down cushions under us.
I sat there, breathing in the eucalyptus candle she lit like a warranty, and realized I'd built a story where I rescued us. Turns out she did the unglamorous saving. That's a bummer when you like your cape. My chest tightened, not from love or hate, but from accounting. What else don't I know about the cost of our life? The rubber plant behind the therapist had fresh leaves. Someone had watered it. I noticed it like I notice bugs fixed and code shipped. It felt like an accusation I couldn't refute. Maybe she'd been watering us in ways I didn't track. Maybe I'd been tracking the wrong things. We took a walk around the block, the sky that washed-out Dallas blue that makes you think about airline points. Amy talked about wanting to matter, not on Instagram, in rooms where people listen. She said Ryan offered shortcuts. She said she fell for the escalator because the stairs felt endless. I said wanting to matter isn't a crime. She said taking a shortcut is a choice. Dilemmas dressed as hallways. Meanwhile, the machine I set in motion kept moving. BrightPath announced enhanced compliance training, which is non-profit for We Noticed. Carter Mercer posted a bland statement about leadership transitions, and the council agenda rezoning stayed posted with fancy renderings of fake people sipping fake lattes. Then Amy found the digital footprints of my gentle sabotage. She recognized my phrasing in an email to council. She matched my timestamps to her calendar because she's not a fool, and we've lived together long enough to identify each other by footprint shape. She showed me her phone. She asked if I had been careful, which in our new language means surgical with a smile. I told her I was careful with her reputation, with the kids, with the truth. She said careful can still cut. She wasn't wrong. Precision wounds hurt differently. She didn't cry, she didn't throw things. She just sat, the way people sit in waiting rooms after the nurse calls someone else's name. The kitchen smelled like toast we forgot under the broiler, bitter, sort of sorry. The chess knight on my desk was on its side now because I'd knocked it over without noticing, a different kind of omen. Preston called, reminding me that goodwill counts in court. I said I wasn't counting wins anymore. I was counting exits. He asked if I meant from the marriage. I said I meant from the narrative where one of us has to be the villain. He laughed, which is not why I pay him, but it helped anyway. That night my daughter asked, point blank, if I was trying to ruin Mom's life, but like nicely. Kids are metaphysicists in hoodies. I said, I'm trying to make sure we all land on our feet. She said her feet are small. I didn't have a snarky comeback. That's how you know it's real. Amy went upstairs without asking me to come. Respectful distance. Necessary, probably. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Rezoning vote tomorrow. I was supposed to care by now, in a different way. I did. I also was starting to care about whether my kids would ever laugh at Thanksgiving again without scanning the room for danger. Ryan resigning from BrightPath was contained. The company put him on leave for optics and internal review. His face vanished from the About page like he never existed. Dallas is merciful to the well-connected. It doesn't forgive, it forgets. Amy paused at the top of the stairs and said we should tell the kids everything, age-appropriate honesty, no more pretending. My body did that little quake like when elevators stop too fast. Was I ready to narrate my own worst choices to a 12-year-old? Trick question. You're never ready. You just decide. Tomorrow, then. Tomorrow we tell the truth we can afford. We talked in the living room because couches feel less like interrogation chairs. The dog wedged himself between us, democratic as ever. Our son bounced a basketball with his fingertips, a quiet metronome for accountability.
Our daughter folded a blanket into a square that kept unfolding. Symbolism. Omnipresent, useful, annoying. I started. I avoid euphemisms when I can. They breed like rabbits. I said, adults make promises they don't always keep. I said, hurt people sometimes invent shortcuts. I said, I reacted with plans because I'm better at plans than feelings. The kids watched me like a Netflix show that suddenly got real actors. Amy followed with her truth. She said she chased new because old felt like air she couldn't taste. She said she chose wrong. She said she wanted a do-over, not a rewind. She didn't drag Ryan into it. She didn't have to. The ghost showed up anyway. Our daughter asked if the Instagram cracked mirror was about us. Amy said she didn't control other people's posts. That was true and also hilarious, and she manages a dozen PTA threads without breaking a sweat. Our son asked if the rezoning would get canceled because of us.
like we're tornadoes with names. I said the grown-ups would keep the city from tripping. Dallas may be messy, but it hates mess in public. After, Amy and I did our own post-game. She said I'd engineered consequences with a smile. I said she'd engineered intimacy with an exit sign. We weren't yelling. Quiet is sometimes meaner. I told her I'd instructed my lawyer to keep the settlement fair, even to give more than the math demanded if it kept the kids from moving like luggage. She called me magnanimous. It didn't sound like a compliment. Meanwhile, Meredith emailed me a thank you with no adjectives, then included a photo of her kids at a soccer game, all knees and neon shoes. She didn't mention Ryan. She didn't have to. Their silence sat in my inbox like an anchor. Preston drafted terms that read like a civilized obituary. Joint custody, child support plus extras I volunteered, house stays with me until the youngest graduates and then gets listed. Retirement accounts split with a tilt to her side. We removed the word adultery from the narrative. We let irreconcilable carry that load. Words have jobs. Pick the right ones for the mess. In the middle of that, my son borrowed my laptop for homework. He clicked the wrong folder and found the photo of the cufflink by the cracked wedding frame. He asked me if I destroyed Mom to win. Destroy. That word dropped into the room like a dumbbell. I said I didn't break anything. He said I don't have to. I plan cracks. He's not wrong. He's also 12. Both can be true. He handed me back the laptop like it might bite. The house's hum took over again. Dryer, fridge, distant traffic, like the soundtrack tried to muffle the scene. I wanted to say I did what adults do. I chose the least bad path. I protected what I could. I shaved my anger into edges that wouldn't slice the kids. But in practice, shaving looks like cutting. Semantics are great until they aren't. Amy came downstairs. She had that look like she'd heard enough to guess the rest. We didn't argue. We sat. The dog snored. Outside, a siren went by, far away. Someone else's crisis, someone else's response time. Lucky them. I emailed Preston to lock the terms. Then I drafted something I swore I wouldn't, a longer, uglier leak, the kind that names names and drops timestamps and leaves dents. I didn't send it. It sat in my drafts, pulsing like a toothache. If revenge is a diet, I'd had enough calories. Did I want dessert? Did I want to be the man who hit send when his son just accused him of demolition? I closed the laptop. It hummed anyway. Machines like closure. People don't get it. The rezoning passed with amendments, guardrails, and the usual speeches about vibrant communities. Ryan didn't attend. The project got a compliance babysitter, a new face on old money. The press used words like transition and commitment. Dallas breathed out. It always does. Our crisis didn't make the news. It didn't have enough drones.
We signed the settlement in a conference room that smelled like carpet cleaner and lukewarm hope. Preston shook hands as if we'd just refinanced, which, in a way, we did. Amy moved into a two-bedroom not far away. Big windows, thin walls, new paint. She sent a photo of the kids eating burnt grilled cheese with smiles like they weren't measuring anything but cheese. Caption, "First dinner, burnt, but ours." It landed soft, like snow we don't get. At home, I watered the rubber plant we finally bought, because apparently I'm committed to on-brand imagery. It perked up overnight. Plants are so forgiving, you think they wrote mercy. The coffee machine dripped like a metronome. Every morning, a beat, a reminder. Time moves whether you do or not. I set my mug on the old coffee ring and didn't wipe it away. History matters even when it stains. People started treating me differently. PTA bads nodded like I did something brave. Some wives smiled like I'd done something unspeakable. My boss offered me a promotion wrapped in appreciation for stability under pressure, which is corporate for "you didn't spill." I said yes, because promotions buy orthodontics and emotional bandwidth. Amy started a job at a small foundation, the kind that actually reads grant proposals. She looked tired and sincere. Honest looks good on her. It always did. I just forgot to notice. Meredith sent a note with nothing but "thank you." No context, no commas, just a boundary that sounded like a prayer. It wasn't for me, it was for her. Ryan's profile updated to Strategic Advisor, which is resume for Time Out. He'll land. Men like him always do, often softer. I don't envy him the landing. I also don't hate him anymore. Hate is heavy. My kids have small feet. Zoom therapy continues, this time for the kids. I attend the first few, then fade to the lobby metaphorically. The therapist's plant is thriving. She probably has a spreadsheet on watering schedules. I respect the consistency. I'm learning to like it. Consistency is just kindness repeated until it looks like furniture. On a Tuesday, an email from BrightPath pops into my inbox. They're redoing their board. They want experienced, operations-minded parents on a new oversight committee. I laughed out loud in my kitchen, the sound startling the dog and me both. Am I the guy who says yes to that? Am I the guy who sits on a committee that exists because of the rumor of me? I opened the draft I never sent, the nuclear one. I read it once, like you reread a text you wrote angry, then sat still long enough for the anger to feel like something else, grief's cousin maybe. I hit delete. Not send, delete. A small motion with a lot of gravity. That night, my son asked if we were okay. I said we're better than bad. He said that's not the same as good. I said it's a start. He nodded like a man receiving bad news in an ER who knows the doctor's doing her best. He's growing up. So am I. Late, but not never. I stood at the window, the glass clean for once, and saw my reflection and the street beyond it layered together. Me and the world overlaid, both real. The metronome of the coffee machine ticked. The plant looked impossibly green. A breeze moved the magnolia leaves out back, a low, creaky applause. Then a knock. Not urgent, polite. Evening light dim, cicadas tuning up like the city's old radio. I didn't check the camera. I didn't need to. I knew it could be Amy, the kids, a package, a neighbor with a complaint about the HOA. Any and all were possible. That's life now. Multiple choice with no wrong answer until you pick. I let the knock come again, softer. I let the coffee drip. I let the plant drink. I let the night settle on my shoulders like a jacket that finally fits. I didn't open the door right away. Not because I'm hiding, because I'm thinking. Which, for a man like me, is how I breathe.